the Gyan part. And actually, this chapter, majority of things you have studied in grade 8. So it's more of a compilation. Okay. And bear with me, just trying out something new today. So, okay. So our chapter is about quadrilaterals. Okay. So the chapter is quadrilaterals. However, this chapter will be more or less roaming about parallelograms. Though we are studying quadrilaterals, a quadrilateral is a closed polygon which has got 4 sides, but you won't be able to make out any sensitive conclusions if you have an irregular polygon. So a regular polygon would be something like a square, a rectangle, or something. So we would be concentrating more on parallelograms. So today, first thing what we will see some properties which can also be converted into theorems about parallelograms. Properties, okay. So let's first see whether I have a shape of a parallelogram. Yes, I do. Okay, so let's say this is a parallelogram. What all things are evident in a parallelogram? And from there, we will be able to get into some properties. Okay, so let me name this A, B, C, and D in a cyclic manner. Coming from grade 8, what we know in a parallelogram has got 4 sides, out of which opposite sides are parallel to each other. Means this side will be parallel to this side, and they will also be equal to each other. Similarly, this side will also be equal to this side, and they will also be parallel to each other. This thing is known to you, right? So the first thing that, and I'm going to write everything, I'll say opposite sides are parallel, number 1. And I can also say that opposite sides are equal. Now the difference between grade 8 and grade 9 is, in grade 8 you will be given a parallelogram and you will use all the parameters and properties of parallelogram to do some findings that prove this angle is so much, prove that this is parallel to that. In grade 9 the story will just be reverse. You will be given some facets about a quadrilateral and you have to prove that it is a parallelogram. That is the difference between grade 8 and grade 9. Okay, so opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are equal. That means this is my grade 8 understanding, that in a quadrilateral, if you can prove that the opposite sides are parallel. Now try to understand. Opposite sides are parallel means one pair, one more pair. Then also it's a parallelogram. If you can prove that opposite sides are equal, then also it's a parallelogram. However, there is a juice that you can extract from these two, and that juice will be known as one pair of opposite sides are equal and parallel. This is interesting. या तो आप प्रूफ कीजिए कि both the pairs are equal, both the pairs are parallel, or you prove that one pair is equal and parallel. What I'm trying to say, if you can prove that AD is equal to BC and AD is parallel to BC, this is necessary and sufficient. You need not bother your head on AB and CD. What I'm saying, say suppose if you prove AD is parallel to BC and similarly you also prove that AD is equal to BC, enough. This is the criteria for a parallelogram. You need not break your head on AB or CD. And if you don't want to do this, if you want to stick to the old one, these are all grade 8 things, then here you have to prove that AD, suppose you want to go by equality, then you have to prove AD is equal to BC, and also you have to prove that AB is equal to DC. Or you can prove AD parallel to BC and these are and, these are and, these are and you have to prove AB parallel to DC. ये चीज समझो पहले, या तो आप ऐसे जाइए या सिर्फ एक पेयर के साथ खेलिए. दोनों के साथ चलेगा. Is this much understood? Now we get into a little bit of grade 9. So let's get into a little bit of grade 9. क्या करें, इसको थोड़ा सा छोटा करते हैं. Let me see whether it will pick up this much or not. Yes, it's picking up. It's a better software. Okay, so this remains. Now let's see in grade 9. So my grade 9, the first thing that I get is number 1, diagonals of a parallelogram divides it into two congruent triangles. Very interesting finding. Two congruent triangles. Diagonal of a parallelogram divides it into two congruent, what do you call, triangles. So let's take one diagonal. Let's take this diagonal. AC as one diagonal. Okay? If you take AC as a diagonal, now since AB is parallel to CD, children, can I not say alternate interior angles are equal? I can say that. Similarly, again I can say this angle should be equal to this angle, alternate interior angles, and this side is common. So by ASA, you can prove that both the triangle ASA, angle, side angle, the side should be included between. यहाँ समझ कोई issue तो नहीं हो रहा है ना? So diagonals of a parallelogram divides it into two congruent triangles, and once you find this, then you can use a lot of CPCT conclusions also while solving problems. Now, converse of it is more important for you. If you find that in a quadrilateral, a diagonal is dividing the quadrilateral into two congruent triangles, then it's a parallel. देखो यहाँ पे खेल पूरा उल्टा होने वाला है. आपको किसी प्रॉब्लम में पहले ये नहीं बोलेगा कि ये पैरेललोग्राम है. ज्यादातर प्रॉब्लम में सब ये बोलेंगे इसे क्वाड्रिलैटरल. आप प्रूफ करो कि ये क्वाड्रिलैटरल है, पैरेललोग्राम है. तो अगर आप उस क्वाड्रिलैटरल में ये प्रूफ कर दिए कि दिस इज कॉन्ग्रुएंट टू दिस, देन यू से दैट फॉर दिस क्वाड्रिलैटरल दिस इज अ डायगोनल, and the diagonal is dividing it into two congruent triangles, then the given quadrilateral is a parallelogram. हमेशा उल्टा सोचो इस चैप्टर में. That grade 8 से one pair you can go ahead, and the new thing that you got is diagonals of a parallelogram divides into two congruent triangles. So our important is its converse. I leave it to you to write the converse. Can you write the converse? If in a quadrilateral the diagonal divides it into two congruent triangles, then the given quadrilateral is a parallelogram. If in a quadrilateral the diagonal divides it into two congruent triangles, then the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. ठीक है? Are we fine? So what all did you learn so far? एक पैरेललोग्राम में उसके ऑपोजिट साइड्स इक्वल होते हैं, उसके ऑपोजिट साइड्स पैरेलल होते हैं. या तो हम सिर्फ पैरेलल पे खेल सकते हैं या फिर हम इक्वालिटी पे भी खेल सकते हैं. और अगर आप एक ही साइड को लेके खेल रहे हैं, then ensure that you are able to prove one pair is equal and parallel. Or if the diagonal is also shown in the figure, then try to look for two congruent triangles. And see here I used it as a parallelogram, therefore I used ASA. In your problem, maybe you're solving it with SAS also. Conditions will be given. Is this much fine? Let's look into our next part. So once again, one more parallelogram. Oh, sorry. One more parallelogram. Okay. Yes. The next one is opposite angles of a parallelogram are equal. opposite angles of a parallelogram are equal. Okay, which means that if this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, this angle will be equal to this angle, and this angle will be equal to this angle. How to prove it? Very easy. They are parallel. So this plus this should be equal to how much? 90 degree. Sorry, 180 degree. Consecutive interior angles or co-interior angles. This plus this is also 180. This plus this is also 180. यहाँ से आ जाता है आपका. So converse क्या कहता है? If in a quadrilateral opposite angles are equal, then the given quadrilateral is a parallelogram. ठीक है, दोनों आपको निकालना है इक्वल, और ऑटोमेटिकली अगर ये और ये इक्वल होएगा ना, ये ऑटोमेटिक इक्वल होना पड़ेगा. ऐसे ही सोच के देखो. Let's use our common sense. Okay, let's say you are drawing something like this. ऐसे आपने ड्रॉ किया और दूसरा वाला आप ऐसे ड्रॉ कर रहे हो. सॉरी, the next one say suppose you are drawing in this manner. इतना एंगल में आप ड्रॉ किया, इसी को ऑपोजिट साइड में घुमा के आप ले आओ सेम एंगल में. ठीक है, से सपोज सेम एंगल में आप घुमा के ले आओ और एंगल्स को इक्वल रखो. और अगर आप इसे मर्ज आप इसे अगर आप मर्ज कराओगे, देन ऑटोमेटिकली यू विल बी फॉर्मिंग अ पैरेललोग्राम. तभी जाके ये मैच करेगा. ठीक है, so this is clear. Opposite angles are equal. Okay, then opposite sides are equal. That is known to you. Opposite angles are equal. ये हमने नया चीज सीखा, right? Okay, the next thing comes with is about diagonals. The third will come with diagonals. Now diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. Bisect each other, which means if you take two diagonals, let's say one of diagonal is this and the second diagonal okay, the second sure. 1 minute. This, and suppose they intersect at a point say x. That means you can write ax will be equal to xc, and similarly dx will be equal to xb. Measurements will be different, because in a parallelogram, always remember AC as a diagonal will not be equal to BD as a diagonal. ये इक्वल नहीं होते हैं. एक छोटा डायगोनल होता है, एक बड़ा डायगोनल होगा. क्लियर? डायगोनल्स ऑफ पैरेललोग्राम बाइसेक्ट ईच अदर. इसको छोड़ के और हमारे पास कुछ नहीं है. ठीक है, इन टर्म्स ऑफ पैरेललोग्राम. अब एक और जो इंपॉर्टेंट चीज हमारा छूट गया है, वो और इंटरेस्टिंग है. वो है थिंक अबाउट अ पैरेललोग्राम. अब हर वो शेप जो पैरेललोग्राम को सपोर्ट करता है, पैरेललोग्राम के लिए क्या चाहिए? ऑपोजिट साइड शुड बी, वन पेयर शुड बी इक्वल एंड वन पेयर शुड बी इक्वल, द अदर पेयर शुड बी इक्वल एंड दे शुड बी पैरेलल. अब मैं जरा आपकी नजर ले आता हूं रेक्टेंगल पे. Is a rectangle a parallelogram? Yes, but a parallelogram need not be a rectangle. देखो, rectangle parallelogram को support करता है. How? Because in a rectangle, आप ये कह सकते हो both the pairs are equal to each other. Both the pairs are means equal to each other individually. Both the pairs are parallel to each other individually. But it has satisfied it. And you can also say one pair of opposite sides is equal and parallel. So जो आपने पढ़ा, those all will also apply to rectangle. So sometimes they may say prove that it is a rectangle, but the only difference in a rectangle is each of the vertex angle will be a 90-degree angle. That's the difference between a rectangle and a parallelogram. ठीक है? Now, let's talk about square. Is a square a parallelogram? Yes. Special case. अभी square के केस में कुछ मजेदार होगा. The diagonals will be equal. The diagonals will bisect each other and also will bisect each other at 90 degree. सोच के देखिए. Diagonals will bisect each other and will bisect each other at 90 degree. Something extra. तो यहां पे diagonals will bisect. Why diagonals will bisect? Because square is a parallelogram. But the special criteria is bisect at 90 degree. अच्छा यहां पे क्या स्पेशल होगा? यहां स्पेशल होगा diagonals are equal. Look, in a parallelogram diagonals were not equal. लेकिन rectangles में diagonal equal होंगे. Square में diagonals will bisect at 90 plus. Is a square a rectangle? Yes, a square is also a rectangle. यानी कि इसके diagonals भी equal होंगे. बड़ा मजेदार चीज आ रहा है. समझ में आ रहा है? अब थर्ड वाले चीज पे चलिए. ट्रपीजियम पैरेललोग्राम हो ही नहीं सकता है. रोम्बस. ट्रपीजियम कैसे पैरेललोग्राम होगा? उसका एक साइड पैरेलल होता है, दूसरा साइड पैरेलल ही नहीं है. ओके, रोम्बस. अच्छा, रोम्बस में क्राइटेरिया क्या होगा? जरा डायगोनल्स को देखिए. डायगोनल्स आर अनइक्वल. कहां इक्वल होगा? एक काजू कतली को सोचो अपने दिमाग में. उसमें एक मेजर डायगोनल होता है, एक माइनर डायगोनल्स होता है. डायगोनल्स आर अनइक्वल. इसमें एक मेजर डायगोनल होगा हमारे पास और एक क्या होगा? माइनर डायगोनल होगा. लेकिन इसमें एक खासियत है. बट दे विल बाइसेक्ट एट 90 डिग्री. Is a square a rhombus? Yes. So whatever is applicable for a square will be applicable for a rhombus also. Rhombus is not a square, but square is a rhombus. So here also we will say diagonals bisect at 90 degree. ये finer points आपको याद रहने पड़ेंगे. All sides are equal. Rhombus is a square which has fallen lazy. Parallelogram is a rectangle who was standing wholly in the class and then just became like this. Rhombus is a square who became like this. ठीक है? तो क्या क्या फाइनल पॉइंट्स हमने देखे? In a parallelogram, diagonals need not be equal. In a rectangle, diagonals will be equal. In a square, diagonals will be equal. In a rhombus, diagonals will not be equal. In a rhombus, diagonals will bisect at everywhere. Bisection will be there because all are parallelograms. हर कोई bisect करेगा, लेकिन कोई कोई ज्यादा खूबी से bisect करेगा. कौन कौन करेगा? Rhombus and squares will bisect at 90 degree, whereas rectangles and parallelograms will not bisect at 90 degree, but they will bisect. Speciality about rectangle is that the diagonals are equal. About square is that the diagonals are equal, but in rhombus the diagonals are not equal. These things you have to keep in mind while we are solving problems related to parallelogram. Is this much clear? Anyone has any doubt? No. What is fixed value? A rectangle's diagonal bisect each other half half. If you are saying bisect, then how can there be fixed value? Bisect means half half. That's the fixed value. ठीक है? Okay. Apart from this, one more theorem that you should know here is the midpoint theorem. The midpoint theorem. Midpoint theorem applies to triangles. Then why is it included in this chapter? उसमें भी एक parallelogram formation हमें दिखता है. कहाँ दिखेगा? जब हम उसे प्रूव करते हैं. पहले midpoint theorem को समझने की कोशिश करते हैं. Midpoint theorem होता क्या है? ठीक है? So let's say in a midpoint theorem you will be given a triangle. हमारे पास एक triangle है. The triangle is A, B, C. So you know the midpoints of two sides. The midpoint of two sides. So let's take the midpoint. मान लो हमारे पास AB's midpoint is here, and we have one more midpoint on this side, right? And let's name these midpoints. इसका midpoint है E और इसका midpoint है F, right? And let's join the midpoints. So E and F are midpoints of sides AB and AC respectively. The respectively word actually makes that whatever you wrote, chronology applies. E will be for AB, F will be for AC. सवाल आता है सर ABC कैसा ट्रायंगल है? स्केलिन हो सकता है, आप इसको कोई आइसोसेलेस या फिर इक्विलैटरल सोचने की जरूरत नहीं है. We'll go by the general case. ABC is a scalene triangle. Okay, that means from here we can conclude that AE is equal to EB is equal to half of AB, and AF is equal to FC is equal to half of AC. ठीक है? मिड पॉइंट थ्योरम के दो वर्जन्स होते हैं. द फर्स्ट वर्जन 1/2. फर्स्ट वर्जन कहता है लाइन जॉइनिंग मिड पॉइंट ऑफ टू साइड्स of a triangle is parallel to third side. बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है. इसमें इस वर्ड पे ध्यान दीजिए, टू साइड्स. ठीक है, पे अटेंशन ऑन दिस वन. टू साइड्स, तो ऑटोमेटिकली आपको थर्ड साइड का डेफिनेशन पता हो जाएगा. लाइन जॉइनिंग द मिड पॉइंट ऑफ टू साइड्स. विच टू साइड्स? दीज आर द टू साइड्स. सो हु इज द थर्ड साइड? दिस इज द थर्ड साइड. ठीक है ना? Line joining the midpoint of two sides of a triangle is always parallel to the third side. और ये सत्य है whether it is an equilateral, whether it is isosceles, whether it is scalene. हम scalene मान के चल रहे हैं. ठीक है? And to prove this, what we do, we actually construct a line. यहाँ पे फिर वो पैरेललोग्राम वाला लॉ आ जाता है. We construct something called say CX, which is parallel to EB. You take CX parallel to EB, and where is the X position? The X position is such that you are actually extending. You are extending EF, right? और इसको आप एक X position मान लो. अब आप ये दोनों ट्राइंगल को कॉन्ग्रुएंट प्रूफ करने की कोशिश कीजिए. कैसे कॉन्ग्रुएंट प्रूफ करेंगे? बड़ा इजी. डोंट यू थिंक दिस एंगल इज इक्वल टू दिस एंगल वर्टिकली ऑपोजिट? सिंस यू हैव सेड दैट दिस इज पैरेलल टू दिस, अल्टीमेटली दिस होल पार्ट, देन डोंट यू थिंक दैट एज ऑल्टरनेट इंटीरियर एंगल्स this angle should be equal to this angle? And you already know that this side is equal to this side, half of this. So these two triangles become congruent. If these two triangle becomes, yes, very good, A say, if these two triangles become congruent, by CPCT you can now say this is equal to this, and this fellow is equal to this fellow, but this fellow was equal to this fellow also. Do you agree? That means if you now concentrate on EXCB, then you find that one pair is parallel by construction and is equal by CPCT. So can I not say EXCB is a parallelogram? I can say that. And if this is a parallelogram, then you have already proved now this side is equal to this side. That means if it is a parallelogram, then EX should be equal to BC. EF is half of EX. So EF is also half of BC. वर्बली पहले हम देख लेते हैं, फिर इसे प्रूफ करके भी देखते हैं, ठीक है। आइए इसकी प्रूफ को लिख के देखते हैं. Let's write its proof. So proof will be in two parts. The first part we will prove that it is actually parallel to this. Okay, it's parallel to the third side. इसको parallel proof करने के लिए हम कैसे proof करेंगे? Number one, we will draw CX parallel to EB and extend means it's a straight line. EF till X. You have extended EF till X. You have drawn this parallel to this, and you have extended EF till X. ये समझ में आया बच्चा? ठीक है. Now we compare triangle. The triangle का नाम देखिए AXE. Say AXE and triangle. हमने अपने AXE लिया है तो यहाँ पे क्या लेंगे? CX AXE. So we'll take CFX. This is F. Huh? This is F beta. This is our F portion. ठीक है. I'm writing इतना बड़ा बड़ा नहीं लिख रहा हूँ. 1 1. Let's go 2. 1 minute. 1 2 3. I'm writing this as 4. Can I write angle 1 is equal to angle 2? Vertically opposite angles. No issues. Okay. Angle 4 is equal to angle 3. Alternate interior angles. They are alternate interior angles for what? For EB parallel to XC and AC as transversal. Very good. ठीक है? And you can also say that AF is equal to FC. This is given to you that it is the midpoint. Therefore, you can say triangle AXE is congruent to triangle CFX by ASA congruence criterion. Clear? If that be the case, then I can first say EB is equal to XC CPCT, right? And you already have EB parallel to XC by construction. Therefore, I can write EXCB is a parallelogram. One pair of opposite side is equal and parallel. Sufficient criteria कर दिया हमने, तो ये parallelogram हो गया. ठीक है बच्चा? अगर ये parallelogram है, therefore EX is parallel to BC or EF is parallel to BC. Your first part is proved. That line joining the midpoint of two sides of a triangle is parallel to the third side. ये part तो हमारा proof हो गया. ठीक है? अब एक और चीज क्या प्रूव करना है कि EF is half of BC. और बहुत easy है. ठीक है ना? Half of BC के लिए हमने already proof कर दिया था. What? From the congruence you can now say EF is equal to FX. This is again by CPCT. Therefore, EF is equal to half EX, which is equal to half BC. Why? Because EX is equal to BC as EXCB is a parallelogram. बस आपका सेकेंड पार्ट भी हो गया. समझ में आया? तो ये पूरा चीज पैरेललोग्राम है. दैट मींस ऊपर वाला इज इक्वल टू नीचे वाला. हाफ इज ऑफ दिस, हाफ ऑफ दिस. इसके अतिरिक्त इस चैप्टर में और ज्ञान की कोई चीज तो है नहीं हमारे पास। समझ में आया? अब प्रॉब्लम जहां से भी हो आप कोई भी थ्योरम यूज करके कर सकते हैं। अच्छा, इस चैप्टर को करने के लिए क्या क्या नॉलेज आपके पास होना चाहिए? यू शुड बी गुड विथ लाइन्स एंड एंगल्स, you should know vertically opposite angles, you should also be thorough with parallel lines and transversal conclusions, alternate interior angle, consecutive interior angle, corresponding angles, उसमें क्या होता है, क्योंकि ये सारा कुछ आपको जरूरत पड़ेगा जब ये आप प्रूव करेंगे, प्लस the reasonings that you learned for parallelogram, rhombus, square in this chapter and rectangle, because sometimes they'll ask you prove that it is a square, sometimes they'll ask you prove that it's a rhombus, sometimes acha, how will you prove something is a rhombus? Something is a rhombus, it can be proved if the diagonals bisect each other at 90 degree. How will you prove it's a square? Diagonals bisect each other, diagonals are equal, or any vertex angle is 90 and sides are equal, और अ पैरेललोग्राम। तो देखिएगा क्या क्राइटेरिया से प्रूव होता है, ठीक है? So let's take a problem. They say, that's a problem in example. They say that prove that every angle of a rectangle is 90 degree. ठीक है? तो इस प्रॉब्लम को हम शुरू कैसे करते हैं? We say one angle of a rectangle is given to you as 90. Now your job is, suppose यहाँ चले आगे. So somebody tells you prove that every angle of a rectangle is 90 degree. और आपको ये प्रॉब्लम शुरू करते वक्त एक आपको एंगल ए दे दिया है, ओके? एंगल ए इज 90, ये आपको दे दिया है दैट दिस इज 90. यू नाउ प्रूव दैट BCDE इज 90. ठीक है, आपके पास क्राइटेरिया क्या है? से गिवन क्राइटेरिया में आपको एक चीज बोल दिया है, आर्यश यू कीप वॉच ऑन द आई ऑन द वॉच ऑन द आई बोल रहा हूं, ठीक है? आपको बोलने की जरूरत नहीं, आप घड़ी पे टाइम लिखिएगा. सो गिवन हमारे पास दिया है ABCD is a rectangle, and they have also said, say angle A is equal to 90 degree, and you need to prove angle B equal to angle C equal to angle D is equal to 90 degree. अगर ये rectangle है तो क्या भाई साहब, is this not parallel to this? Yes. And is AD not a transversal? Yes. So अगर मैं इस एंगल को x पकड़ के चलूं तो क्या मैं ये नहीं लिख सकता हूं कि 90 डिग्री प्लस x शुड बी इक्वल टू 180 डिग्री? बिकॉज ये कैसे एंगल्स बने? ये बने कॉन्जिक्यूटिव इंटीरियर एंगल्स. कॉन्जिक्यूटिव इंटीरियर एंगल्स आर सप्लीमेंटरी. इसमें ग्रेड 8 का नॉलेज यूज हो रहा है भाई साहब. आर सप्लीमेंट्री. फॉर्मेशन क्या है आपका? AB parallel to DC and AD is transversal. बोलो भाई साहब, समझ में आया? यहां से आपने प्रूफ कर लिया कि x तो भाई साहब हो गई 90 डिग्री, ठीक है ना? अब इसकी वैल्यू कितनी आई बच्चा? 90 डिग्री. और यो एंगल को ले लो y. क्या ये इसके पैरेलल नहीं है? है ना? तो अगले फॉर्मेशन में हम क्या लिखेंगे? सिमिलरली, दिस इज द सिंबल फॉर सिमिलरली, हम लिखेंगे x प्लस वाई शुड ऑल्सो बी 180 डिग्री. यहां पे क्या फॉर्मेशन हो रहा है? यहां पे फॉर्मेशन हो रहा है AD पैरेलल टू BC, और क्या हो रहा है? CD हमारा बन रहा है ट्रांसवर्सल. राइट भाई साहब? x की वैल्यू आप निकाल चुके हो. 90 प्लस y इज इक्वल टू 180 डिग्री. दैट मीन्स y इज इक्वल टू 90 डिग्री. अब क्या करोगे? अब क्या करोगे? टेक विथ, हाँ, बी को कैसे प्रूव करेंगे अभी हम? BA इज अगेन पैरेलल ना. हाँ, ये हो गया शीप वाली मेंटालिटी. अरे यार ये क्वाड्रिलेटरल है, इसके चारों एंगल जोड़ने से 360 होने चाहिए. 3 एंगल तो हमें मिल ही गए, तो चौथा ऑटोमेटिकली होगा. मैं जानता था वही आंसर आएगा, इसलिए से. वैसे वो रॉन्ग नहीं है, राइट है. तो ये अब हम ये भी तो लिख सकते हैं ना, ABCD एक क्वाड्रिलेटरल भी तो है कि नहीं? इज अ क्वाड्रिलेटरल. तो यहां से आपको क्या मिलता है? एंगल A प्लस एंगल B प्लस एंगल C प्लस एंगल डी इज इक्वल टू 360 डिग्री। ये मिल चुका है, ये मिल चुका है, ये तीनों कितने हैं 90, ये 90, ये भी 90, तो कितना 260 हो गया। एंगल बी इज इक्वल टू 360 डिग्री माइनस 270 डिग्री। भाई साहब ये हो गए आपके 90 डिग्री, तो आपने प्रूव कर दिया। ठीक, समझी? एनीवन एनी डाउटिंग? नो डाउट। चले थोड़े एक्सरसाइज के प्रॉब्लम्स करते हैं। बुक तो है आपके पास, खोल लीजिए। चैप्टर कितना है? 8 नंबर चैप्टर है ये, कुछ सर्कल से पहले वाला चैप्टर।